So it's extremely apparent to me that the world and society in general is not heading in the right direction. It's all over our media, our entertainment, our politics, and our ethics. The way we're living just isn't sustainable, and I think a lot of people have that feeling in their stomach that something is just about to happen. Things just are not right, and not much makes sense anymore. So if you're watching this video in 2050, I'll be shocked that you made it, but this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to give some of my predictions for what I think the future may hold, and you'll be there to see if I was correct or not. Firstly, I want to start off by saying that there are three main categories to this video: war, climate change, and pandemics. These three things are ultimately the three things that I believe are going to cause a huge reduction in global population by 2050. So let's start with war first. Russia versus Ukraine. Let's first analyze the best case scenario for this war. Let's imagine that Russia announced today that they're going to give up Crimea, the Donbass, and other parts of eastern Ukraine. Will people really be satisfied? Eastern Ukraine is in ruins. Tens of thousands of deaths attest to war crimes. Tens of billions of dollars of damage to infrastructure and livelihoods. How is the entire Ukrainian nation supposed to come back from this? If Russia just packed up and went home, do you think everything would go back to normal, like say 10 years ago? The can of worms has unfortunately already been opened, which means there's no real way for this war to finish unless there is global catastrophe. I don't see a way out unless Russia completely sacrifices itself, not only to withdraw but also to go into huge debt, paying back reparations, and offer up every leader in its government for trials on war crimes. But that will never happen. Anything less than that and Russia is just getting away with severe injustice, and the Ukrainian people and the rest of the world won't ever let that go. And by the way, this is just the bare minimum that Russia has to do in order to create some semblance of justice. Even if they did do all of this, it would never compensate for stealing so many people's lives. Tensions and conflict would inevitably continue until global catastrophe arises, which in turn would mean a massive reduction in the human population. So that's the best case scenario. Now let's talk about the worst case. The war continues and Russia does not back down. Bitterness and contempt within Ukrainian people grows and grows. Russia eventually controls the entirety of Ukraine. Ukrainian troops migrate to the border of Poland and there's still conflict. Russians try to fight with Ukrainian troops at the border of Poland, but somehow damage Polish territory and Polish casualties come as a result. NATO decides to get involved, Ukraine joins NATO, and World War III starts. Again, global catastrophe leading to nuclear fallout and a massive reduction in global population. It's clear to me that the world will most likely not escape another world war, and it will eventually lead to global catastrophe just as it always has. Humans, unfortunately, are just not able to learn from their mistakes until there is a massive global catastrophe. The Russia-Ukraine scenario is similar to the Germany-Poland scenario in 1939. World War II initially began in a similar way, and it took a global catastrophe to end Hitler's reign. Hitler only backed down because he was forced to. The exact same thing will need to happen for Putin. This is what needs to happen in order to stop Russia, but Ukraine cannot do this alone. So my prediction for 2050 is that there will have been a world war. Second category, climate change. So the world is on track to overshoot 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming, and this is just a conservative estimate. Real estimates would be 4 degrees plus when you take into account all of the feedback loops, such as the Arctic and the Antarctic melting and the Amazon rainforest disappearing. Global economic growth just isn't slowing down, and production isn't slowing down either. In fact, people are more delusional and ignorant than ever. The global birth rate is still increasing, and all of this is masked by greenwashing and techno-optimism. The reality is that you cannot fight physics and thermodynamics with technology, and this has always been the case. The only answer to global warming and climate change is and always has been degrowth. But there is no degrowth, and there won't be degrowth. We all know this. So the problem becomes a paradox. If humanity continues to grow, we will die from climate change. If humanity decides to degrow, however, we will die from civilization collapse. That's because this system that we all live by is dependent on economic growth and mass production. As soon as infinite growth stops, the whole pyramid scheme collapses like a house of cards. Now let's have a look at the Arctic. So the Arctic will be ice-free by 2040. After that, the planet's temperature will rise dramatically because there will be no white ice left to reflect the UV light back into space. The deep blue ocean will absorb more heat, and as a result, methane clathrates will release from underneath the Arctic seabed and the permafrost, causing even more potent short-term extreme warming. As the planet warms rapidly, plants and animals won't be able to adapt to the changes fast enough, thus dying off and leaving no food for humans to consume. Water resources will also continue to become scarce as mountain glaciers continue to retreat. This will lead to excess migration and conflict. It's very clear now that we are in the early stages of runaway global warming. The Earth is now warming completely by itself, and it will continue to do so without human interaction. As a result, I believe that by 2050, there will be a massive reduction in the global human population due to abrupt climate change and global warming. Third category, pandemics. As the Arctic warms 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the world, in turn this means rapidly thawing permafrost. This thawing permafrost is releasing microbes from the Neanderthal era. As global temperatures continue to rise, it becomes more likely that viruses and bacteria from underneath the permafrost could reawaken and infect local wildlife. Researchers in the USA announced that they found genetic material from 33 viruses, 28 of them novel, found in ice samples in the Tibetan Plateau in China. In fact, a more relevant concern is that the thawing permafrost could release the long dead bodies of people who existed thousands of years ago, who may have died from infectious diseases and so may release that infection back into the world. So after considering all of this information, I think it's extremely likely that humanity may suffer from a true worldwide global pandemic in the next 25 years. And this will cause a huge global reduction in human population. So before I finish this video, I just want to say that in my opinion, the root cause of all 3 of these categories is human ignorance. None of these things I've mentioned in this video would be a problem if humans just took the time to sit still and think critically.